Let's see what happens. Oh my gosh, I think we're live. All right.
Give him a few minutes.
Yeah, we'll give you a few minutes.
No, there's 19. Okay.
You can see people there.
Not yet. 12, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1.
Okay, it shows that we're streaming.
See, look. Video is now live.
Watch live. Put that. Let's see. There we go. Hey, y'all. welcome to Well Said with Kim and Vic. OMG.
Oh.
Did you know Chaos is a woman? Did you know that, Vic? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I did.
I don't know how I feel about that. I feel a certain type of way because being a female. But I guess if we really honest about it, we females can be a little chaotic, a little.
Being said with that, did you know Lady Chaos came back in Wisconsin the other night with a vengeance?
Oh, Lord.
Oh, yes, with BLM with her around their arms. Did you know they were throwing bricks through citizens' homes late at night? And did you know there's also chicken chaos?
Chicken
chaos.
Now, look, you know as black folk, we love chicken now.
Tyson and Purdue have been shaking down a lot of businesses, hiking up chicken prices. So if you've seen a lot of people running out of Popeyes in arguments concerning lack of chicken, maybe it's because of lack of chicken. So we had chicken chaos going on as well. Chaos is just everywhere.
But Vic, you know how we black folks are about our chicken. I ain't trying to be funny and I'm not trying to say any stereotypes, but you know how we like our yard birds, so that's understandable. But I never thought that the shortage of chicken was specifically to start chaos. Isn't that crazy?
But you saw the fighting, right?
Yes.
Because they didn't have enough chicken sandwiches at Popeyes. So yeah, there was chicken chaos. We do have that. And the problem is that chaos is a theory, an application of real life. It's two types of chaos. It's classical conditioning. I'm sure you heard about that when you were in school. And then we have operant conditioning. And classical conditioning occurs when someone comes to associate specific stimuli. So there was something being stimulated you. And so when you were, there's someone shaking the bell. So it would be Popeyes shaking the bell and you run into Popeyes for the sandwich. And now when they shake the bell, you got to have enough sandwiches to give to your customer.
But I have to be honest, Vic, when all of that stuff was going down with all of the chaos and stuff, I didn't see it that way until somebody brought it to our attention, to my attention. I saw somebody make a comment that you guys, it ain't even about Popeyes or in churches or whatever, whoever it was, was going. It seemed like it was a way to stir up all of this emotions in order to get people to buy a sandwich. Isn't that something?
Yes.
So when you think, I guess maybe you guys have figured out that we're starting, our show today, our inaugural show, talking about chaos.
Lady Chaos.
I don't know. I feel a certain type of way about that, being a female. But I guess if I'm being honest,
you can be chaotic.
Yes, I can be.
You see that? I went chaotic. Yeah, she can be.
All of us females are chaotic if we're honest with ourselves. So that's what we're going to open up today with, talking about chaos. We're going to look at chaos from several perspectives. We're going to ask some questions about it.
Who's causing the chaos?
Who benefits from the chaos?
And what is your response to all the chaos? We're going to bring all of that down to you. And what your response supposed to be when chaos comes your way. Because you want to be positive and in all
and educated
and
want to know what's going on. I think one of the main things, especially with chaos, shout out to Kevin Jackson.
Yes,
KJ, our guy. Thanks
Yes,
for
thank
giving
you.
us this opportunity. But when you think about it's funny, I thought about KJ when I said chaos. No shade, Kevin.
Oh,
But anyway, but when we think about the chaos, and one of the
Yes.
things we hope to take away from today is that you have good information. One of the things
Yeah.
we like to do at C is try to educate people, give you good information, and then
Yes.
just let you make your own decisions, help you be informed and educated,
Yes.
and then you can make your own decisions about how you think you should respond to chaos.
Absolutely,
so.
absolutely. Let's get into this chaos about what's happening here. It's chaos. We know that it's everywhere. This sensitivity to initial conditioning means that with chaotic systems, it makes firm predictions because one can never know exactly, precisely to an infinite
Conclusion
of basically what the response is going to be.
Correct.
So, being that there are 4 different types of behavior of chaotic behavior,
Okay.
you have basically optimistic, pessimistic, trusting, and envious. But out of all of the 4, the last one, envious, it seems to be the most chaotic behavior out of it all.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So when it comes to personality types,
Yes.
we got 4 basic personality
Yes.
types. So we have the optimist,
Yes.
we have the pessimist,
Yes.
we have the trusting,
Yep.
and then we have the envious.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And out of those 4 personality types, which one is the most common?
Envious.
Envious.
The envious is the envious is what's chaotic about it all. So in other words, the response to all this chaos are individuals who are envious of the haves and the have-nots.
Okay. Oh, great point, sis. Okay, so because I'm kind of slow. I may be some dumb,
Not
but I
really,
ain't
she's
some
not.
dumb. But
No,
I just got to
she's
make
very
sure I'm
smart.
getting her points because these are critical. What she's saying. So with the 4 personality types,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and with envy being the most common,
Yes.
and I think I heard you say a number about 90%.
Yes.
Of the population
Yes.
falls into that
In the-
envy category,
Exactly.
right? So in relationship to what we're talking about, right? If we're talking about chaos,
Yes.
so if you got 90% of the people being envious, right? And
Yeah.
then you can make people be divided against each other because of envy, right?
Yes.
Because we talk about the haves and the have-nots,
But
right?
there's different types of envy.
Okay.
You can be, there's different types of envy. You can be envious of someone who have something that you aspire to have. So that's one envious. But you can like them.
Okay.
You can be envious of someone, but you really like the person.
Okay.
But however, you're envious of whatever they have that you're not able to obtain.
Okay, so you could have. Are you saying, Vic, that there's a certain level of envy? That's okay. Admiration. I guess that's kind of
admiration. Envy.
right. It's
okay,
in
let's
that
put it like
in
that.
that in that realm.
Yeah.
But if given the right circumstances,
Yeah.
right? If
Yeah.
you've stoking enough and you're putting enough in the mix, that envy can go from admiration all the way over to that green-eyed monster,
Exactly.
which
Yeah.
can be used.
Yes.
Or chaos can
Yes.
be used to get you from that admiration
Absolutely.
all the way to that green-eyed monster.
And if you want to go back, Lady Chaos has been in the Garden of Eden. This is not
From the beginning.
from the very
Yes.
beginning. Okay, so this is the person, the who, okay, is the person that is still shaking the bell, and it was shaken in the Garden of Eden.
So who was shaking it in the garden, Vic?
Well, Lady Envy.
The envy and
Okay, and you had the serpent.
who was the serpent? Come on, say it, sis. Who was the serpent? Who was the serpent? I want to hear it. Who was the serpent? Because we know that same serpent exists today. But
Yes, it is. But we can. The serpent can be many things.
I'm so messy.
It's it's an analogy. So I'm just saying, so being that it started there, and then you see it once it came out of the garden, it continued with
Okay.
the two brothers.
Right.
Okay, so you have
Cain and Abel.
So
Cain
you have
killed Abel, right?
That's right. So you have the envy there. So why did Cain kill Abel? Because why?
He was jealous.
He was jealous because his sacrifice.
He was all the way over to that green-eyed monster.
Yeah. It wasn't the fact that he didn't love his brother.
Who
it's the
rang
fact
that bell, though? Who created that chaos? Okay.
Exactly. So chaos is not something that is something new. This is something that governments have always used to divide the people.
Not governments.
Oh, governments, yes.
Not those governments we supposed to trust in and believe in and put all of our faith in. Okay.
Yes.
That government.
That government.
Okay.
Yeah. So has always been envious. So, being that let's bring it back to, because you kind of like took me off.
I'm sorry,
government. Let's focus back.
The government in itself is chaotic. Okay,
so
I'm sorry.
Chaos has always been in existence, and so we want to just like kind of like give you an overall scope of who, what, when, why we're experiencing all of this chaos, and how can we get a grip on it, and how can we have a positive reaction to all of this chaos, and that we would be successful in doing so. That's our main objective today.
Right. To give some, give some historical perspective.
Yes.
To give some psychological perspective. To look at what people are saying today. Kind of go out on a social media realm and see what they're saying there. But I think it's really important to understand that chaos has a purpose. And a lot of us, as we're looking at it, is, it can cause a lot of anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
And we, as human beings, we like a certain level of structure, right? Because we can operate just like kids. Yeah. When we were kids, we liked for our parents to give us structure, even if it meant whooping our behind. I mean, I don't even talk about my mom and how many butt whoopings I got. I didn't get a lot, really, but I appreciated that she provided structure, right?
Yes.
When things were chaotic, I felt very insecure and very afraid, but when my mom provided that structure, when I knew I was gonna get a meal, when I knew I had a roof over my head, when I knew I had food to eat, all of those things gave me a sense of security. But when things were out of kilter, I know I felt very afraid. So I think what we have to remember as human beings, we do like a certain level of structure. And like I was saying before, that there's a reason.
And that's why we're having school chaos with the virtual learning chaos.
Wow.
We have children want to be in a structure where it's nurturing. Okay, they want to receive the affirmation from their teachers that they're on the right path of learning, correctly. Yeah. That they are basically putting in that work for that.
Yes.
But now that we have the virtual learning, some children can't even learn because it's too difficult. I'm getting phone calls from parents of what should they do. Yeah. Who should they turn to?
Right.
Their child can't learn virtually.
Yeah.
I can only suggest is that you can go to your school principal.
Right.
And if your child is on the spectrum of autism, which is very broad, I would suggest that you inquire to see if a teacher can give you an in-home instruction instead of a virtual instruction for your children, because we do know that children with autism learn differently. Right. They don't learn the same way children that's atypical would learn in a school setting or a virtual learning setting.
Well, in case you guys didn't know a little bit about me and Vic, we are both former educators. I used to be a substitute teacher, and Vic used to teach children
with autism.
So we're familiar with the chaos that's coming from the classroom, which is what we see a lot. We'll talk about that as well. But I know for me, like even right now, my granddaughter, I have an 8-year-old granddaughter who's learning virtually. It's very chaotic. The school system wasn't prepared at all. We've seen things in social media where teachers or parents are being asked to sign off on forms that they won't watch what their kids are learning while they're on Zoom. Yeah. Teachers are calling the police on parents who have guns in their house. So
we have educational chaos.
Chaos, exactly.
This is educational chaos. It's everywhere. It's affecting everyone. There's no one not affected by this lady chaos.
Only thing I know is if I was a parent, I'm a grandparent right now. My children are grown, amen. But today, if I was a parent and I got a letter from the school telling me I can't watch what they're learning on Zoom, I would tell them to kick rocks. Because you got me messed up. One of the things I always told my children when we were coming up is that I'm their first teacher. And their teacher is my helper to help them learn.
Yes.
So they should treat their teacher, number one, I was always taught respect for teachers. Unfortunately, that's not happening today. But I was always taught to respect teachers. And that what my children had to understand was that me and their teacher worked together for their education. So the fact that school boards are asking parents not to watch what their kids are learning. The kids are at home. Are you kidding me? So you're basically trying to tell me how to run my household.
Yes.
Like, is that crazy?
But the thing about it is, we're going to put a link on at the end. We're going to put a link on several videos that we were able to obtain during our research on Lady Chaos. And one of the links that we're going to place is that a parent was able to hear a teacher tell her child that he was no longer welcome in the chat because of a question that was asked, and he answered. The question was, name someone that you admire, and he said President Trump. And we were triggered to chaos. And the child was told that they needed to leave the chat. But before leaving the chat, the mother was able to come into the room and hear the scolding from the teacher to the child, and she recorded it. And we're going to put that video at the end of this first show today, where you can go and you can watch it on your leisure. But it is...
it's an audio, right?
It's an audio. Yes. And you can listen to it. And you can listen to the rant from the teacher going crazy because the child, who is
the child was 10.
But the thing about it is that he admires the president, and that's something to be said from a child. It wasn't a football player. It was the president, and he is first generation American because he was coming from Guatemala.
Okay, that's right.
From Guatemala. The mother was teaching her children how to honor and respect authority. So therefore, that video, you really need to click on it and just listen to it. This is not something political. It's just showing all of the chaos that's happening in our country. And we have to focus on how to resolve this chaotic situation that everyone is going through.
Not only resolve it, but just to recognize it, Vic. I think that's important.
Yeah.
I remember the parent in the audio. She was very calm.
Yes, very calm.
She wasn't chaotic, and it was obvious that this teacher was putting what he believed on this child and making this child struggle.
Yes.
So we don't care what side of the political spectrum you are on, but you should care what your children are learning and how the teachers are treating them.
Yes.
Unfortunately, this baby was kicked out of the chat because he admired the president. And I just think that's crazy because if it was Barack Obama, I wouldn't care. The president should be admired. That's the highest office in the land and the most powerful person in the world.
Yes.
I always respect the office of the president.
Exactly.
So telling kids that they can't admire a president because of your own bias or your TDS, as we call it, is shameful. So, to just kind of bring it back home.
We're going to give a punch for that from Donald Trump.
So to kind of bring it back home when we're in respect to the chaos, and this is something that we found on social media because it's not hard to find it.
Exactly.
Right?
You can find the chaos everywhere.
It's all over the place, but to help
definitely.
put it in perspective so that you can understand what's going on. Oh, here go the president. Hold on. Oh, Mr. President, I'm on the live right now. Is there any way I can call you back? I know you got a lot going on, but I'll get back with you later. Okay? All right, thanks, Donnie. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. I swear the president, he always want me for something, but I'm on the live right now, so I got to get back with him later.
There's sometimes people want to be more important than they really are. You give them a show, and this is what you get, okay? So
don't hate, because I got the president here. Don't hate.
Gosh. But back to what we were saying, it's about education, and we're trying to educate the audience that the chaos is being blown so way out of proportion that we're forgetting what is really important.
Well, yeah, and not only that, I think one of the things that we're forgetting is that, especially in regards to what you talked about with the 4 personality types, right?
Yes.
So when we think about envy, and you got to think about it too. Envy is probably the lowest common denominator in character flaws, right? Or it's one of the, jealousy and envy is probably one of the worst.
They kind of pivot
flaws.
one another. They kind of like run neck and neck.
So when chaos is being fomented, and when chaos is being fomented, and it appeals to that lowest common denominator in our character, right? So you got to think about it, is that the jealousy or the green-eyed monster comes out when there's a lot of chaos. So I think one of the things that we're really trying to bring home is that we really want you to recognize what it is, especially with the 4 personality types. You got to think about that. And if you fall into that, and I think if most of us are honest, there's a certain level of envy. There's not somebody you've ever looked at that you say, wow, I wish I could be like that or have that and stuff. But the key is, what do you do with it? And then do you recognize it? And then keep it from going over to the green-eyed monster.
It's just having a certain like a level of I admire them and with respect.
Stay in
like,
the admiration.
It's like a respect. Right. It's like, okay, I admire them, I respect them. So it's like a reverential kind of respect of the person and their achievements, but don't let it
I like that word, reverential. I'll write that down, sister.
Because you can really respect someone on a level that you will never allow that green-eyed monster to ever rear its head, because of the reverential respect that you have for the person and their achievements. So we must remember that. And to say the chaos is because we're basically taking a lot of that respect from the teachers being respected and giving a lot of power to minors, and so the minors is just not in classrooms that we are losing respect. Children are losing respect for authority, any type of authority, any authoritative figure that is for their safety. You're talking about police officers, you're talking about teachers, you're talking about the elderly, you're talking about so many different platforms of being respectful. And so we're basically, it's like at its head, it's like a champagne bottle. It's just
about to pop.
It's just and it's just right there, and the cork
the
is
pressure
moving.
exactly.
The cork is moving, and it's just ready to explode. But we don't know how to pivot to keep the cork down. I think that's the issue. What is your take on that? I think it's like the cork is ready to pop. However, people don't know how to get away from that chaotic position, because sometimes you're in a chaotic situation, okay, or a chaotic encounter, and sometimes you can become chaotic back because the person is being chaotic to you. So it's like you don't know how to respond. So I'm kind of doing a reference from that to I'm trying to make a comparison, not a reference, a comparison from the cork bottle to the confrontation. How do we get from that?
Okay. Well, I think one of the main things is we have to have some historical context, right?
Exactly.
One of my favorite scriptures, shout out to my Christian folks out there, is Hosea 4:6, is that my people perish for a lack of knowledge.
Absolutely.
So when you're ignorant to something, and let's just get this clear too, because ignorant is not a bad thing. It just means you don't know.
Absolutely.
And it memeans you can learn. Now, stupid, that's a whole nother story. I don't do stupid, but I will talk about ignorance. That's a whole, you can't fix stupid.
Yeah.
So, but I think because we really don't have any historical context, one of the things I notice a lot, and I'm telling y'all argue a lot on Facebook with a lot of what I call useful idiots, and hoping that people who don't know see my arguments and learn a little bit something from it. But from a historical context, for the last 100 years, if you look at world history with the rise of communism,
yes,
and the rise of socialism,
all the isms,
with the exception of capitalism. Capitalism is
good. It's good.
It ain't perfect, but it's good.
It's good. Yes.
But when you look at the rise of these ideologies, they came from chaos.
Yes.
Right? When Hitler took over, Germany, there was a lot of chaos in there. And then, what's more chaotic than World War II?
Yes. Exactly.
So, and his tactics were to divide
the people.
Exactly.
Divide the people.
Made the Jewish people the bad guys.
The scapegoat.
And unfortunately, look at the horror that came out of that.
Yes.
Almost 6 million people were killed.
Yes.
Because of that chaos situation.
Yeah.
So to see people wanting that type of return and not really understanding what you're going to get from that chaos, it sometimes to me is really mind-blowing. But I think it's really because those types of things, going back to the chaos in the classroom, it's not taught.
Yeah.
It's not taught.
Yeah.
It's, a certain narrative is being pushed in the classroom.
It's true. If you don't teach history, you're bound to repeat it again.
Yes.
And if you look at the socialist part of history, Venezuela, people want communism.
Cuba.
They left there because they saw the opportunity here in America. They saw the things that they could obtain here in this beautiful country that they could never attain in their country. And they came here willing.
Right.
Some came on boats, some came on planes, but they came legally. And they learned to assimilate inside of America.
Right.
It's just like when I moved from New York City and I came to
Can y'all tell NC, she's from New York?
And I came to NC. When I came to NC, I came here because I wanted in an area that was rural. I wanted an area that there was not a lot of government overlooking.
Right.
I wanted to be in a place where guns
were welcomed and okay.
I left that because I wanted to assimilate with the community and get to know the community. You can't come from one place to another and not be willing to embrace the culture, not being able to speak the language, and love this country. You can't leave your country that you hated so much to come here and not be willing to assimilate and learn all of the beautiful things that America is all about. We're not perfect. However, this is the best country anyone ever could live in, and I bet I dare someone to say it isn't. For all cultures, this is just not a white America. It's a black America.
Right.
It depends on what you decide to do with your opportunities, and there are a lot of opportunities. It's just what you're gonna do with your opportunity.
Well, you said something, and I'm gonna pivot back to something that you said that really just kind of gave me a little bit of an aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
That we have a microcosm right in this country of kind of fleeing one ideology to come to another, right? So when you think about some of the bigger metropolitan areas like New York City, LA, some of the, Chicago, these areas have a definite type of leaning because, like a lot of those places, it's difficult to get a gun, even though we have First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights. And when you think about some of the ideologies, one of the first things in some of these, like Hitler, Mussolini, Mao Zedong, and stuff. Some of the things that they did, one of the first things they did was disarm the citizenry. Just look at modern day Venezuela. That was one of the first things that they did was take guns away from the citizens. So, but I'm just thinking about what you said, and you tell me if I'm on point with this. Coming from New York to NC, to North Carolina, there's definitely a switch in the culture and the mindset. So is that what you're saying?
Well, and it depends on because we live in boroughs and suburbs. You tend to have a different kind of mindset. Being that I was on Long Island in my later years, I did own a gun in New York City.
Okay. That had to be hard. Wait a minute. Let me
very
ask
hard
you
to obtain a permit, but
wait a minute. Please explain that process, because one of the things that I always hear for those who are in favor of gun control is that it doesn't exist. That it's really easy or difficult, or really easy, like you can go online and order a gun. I know even in the South, it wasn't all that easy. I had to pass a background check. So, but I'm interested to know how that process is in New York.
The thing about it is, it took a while. It took a couple of months. However, in comparison here, in this where I am, it took 2 weeks here, compared to several months in New York. Right. Here, it just took 2 weeks. I went online and I did it, and they called me down, and I had my permit. Now, I don't know if it was anything. Because I had one previously, and so when they did the background check, they knew I had a permit up in New York. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Because it's just like North and South. The two shall never meet.
That Mason-Dixon line is definitely there.
They don't want to know anything about New York City. It's funny, but...
so that's interesting. So it took you a little bit longer.
It took me longer, in New York City.
And if you think about it, though, having to have gun permits really is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
The right to bear arms should not be... It should not be hindered or something. I don't know what the word is. You can't be hindered.
However, the paperwork is so strenuous, meaning not that you're writing and applying for it. It's just the long wait. It shouldn't be a wait for your Second Amendment. Your Second Amendment is already given.
Right.
So I should be able to go into a sheriff's office, apply for a permit, or not even a permit, a concealment, because I should
it should be maybe a concealment, but not a permit. Right.
Yeah, because I've already gotten the permit. The permit is the Constitution.
The Second Amendment is your permit.
Right. But you know how this is more government. I want less government. I want less government in my business.
As you guys can see, we lean.
We do. We lean.
We're constitutionalists. We're definitely constitutionalists, and we believe in
lean right.
a certain way. I mean, we're pro-freedom and pro-liberty.
Exactly.
Is that fair to say?
Exactly. And I want less government in my life. I don't want more government. I want less government in my life.
And I don't care what side of the spectrum or political spectrum you're on.
Want
I want you
government.
To be free.
Yeah.
I want you to have your liberty. I want you to have your freedom. I want you to be able to pursue whatever it is that in your life that makes you happy without me, as long as it's not infringing on my pursuit and what I'm trying to do, then I'm all for it. So bringing out all the way back around to chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that I notice is that when it comes to chaos, that certain people like more chaos and some people like less. Some of us are more law and order.
That's me.
Right.
I'm structured.
And then I think about it too, where, the Bible talks about God as a God of order.
Yes.
Right. So the disorder and the chaos, and maybe I'm beating a dead horse with this point.
With chaos, I know.
Has a reason.
Yes.
And I hope you guys are getting this, is that the two things you really want to think about from this perspective is who is fomenting the chaos. I know I've seen people talking about getting in people's face, being violent. So what if it's a business being burned down? They got insurance, that kind of crazy stuff.
See, when the response is like that, that's chaotic.
That's chaotic.
That's chaos. That's chaos. If you're able to verbally say those things and not conscionably say, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that," that is because you like the chaos. You're part of the problem. This is what I was saying. Like, you having a discussion with someone, and they return with that response that you just said.
Right.
It's like, or two people responding chaotically together. It's not one or the other. It's just sometimes people feed into chaos. Sometimes people live with chaos.
Right.
They don't know how to function without having something chaotic going on in their lives. And this is what gives them the high, because they can never get low. They have to have that high, that stimuli.
Yeah, right.
That's the stimuli. They always have to have someone ringing the bell. So we have to have someone ringing the bell with the deaths of individuals. We have to have the ringing of the bell of defunding the police. We have to have the virtual learning with ringing the bell for students. We just always have to have a stimuli going on. And I'm saying to myself, when does the chaos stop?
Not until those who are fomenting the chaos have total and complete power. We know that's the bottom line, is that the chaos is coming from a class of people who I call the elites, the establishment.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it don't matter if you got an R or a D behind your name.
You can be part of that chaos.
If it's coming out of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And if you notice that the elites, the establishment, the oligarchs,
yes,
the millionaires and billionaires, as they want to call them, who are part of the establishment, whatever.
And this is black and white. This is
it's not a black or white issue.
It's not a black or white issue.
This is a class issue.
This is a class.
It's the elites against the regular everyday folk.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, there's no such thing as a race thing.
Race is a social construct.
Yes.
So if you have any religion or you believe in any type of spirituality or anything, nothing about race is ever mentioned in the Bible. I don't know the Quran very well, but I would assume that it's probably not in the Quran either. People are referred to in biblical scriptural texts, in spiritual texts, by their character, right? Like their certain sinful nature, good-hearted, those things.
Yes.
We can't help those immutable qualities that we have.
Yes.
But yet and still, there's always some force.
Yeah.
That is
That's
causing
us.
a divide.
Yes.
Y'all, we gotta really be smart and pay attention.
Yes.
To where the push is coming from. And I have to be honest though, Vic, sometimes I get caught up in it. I get caught up in it, even knowing that it's there. But sometimes, and
I think that's conditioned. Your classical condition by your classic condition by that. Someone rang the bell for you
to make us tribal,
to trigger you, and that's a trigger. Yeah. And so this is the reason why we're getting this response. Someone triggers, someone kneels on someone's back. That's the bell. Here comes the chaos. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's just that, and then it doesn't just stop there. Then we get the back and forth with the racists, back and forth, black and white. Then we get, because why did he step on his back? Defunded the police.
Right.
Okay, why would you defund the police? We need the police. We love the police.
Especially more so even in the black community.
In the black community,
the black community can least afford to not have police.
Yeah.
The number one killer of black men, I think it's between, and don't quote me, y'all, but I know this. I'm paraphrasing. I think between the ages of 15 and 35, the number one killer of black men in that age range is homicide.
Yeah.
It's homicide.
We're killing.
So why would we want to defund the police? Yeah. Because it's a narrative that's being pushed. Yeah. But one thing I was thinking about, because you know how I came here and talk about chaos being a female. I still feel a certain type of way about that. But I mean, it is what it is. When I looked up Greek mythology,
Yes.
and the goddess chaos, so there was a huge nothingness.
Yeah.
Right, a huge expanse of nothingness, and out of that nothingness, no order or anything.
Yes.
To the to the universe
of the chaos.
but out of that was born order. So when I thought about it, I don't feel too much of a certain type of way because, like I was saying, if we're honest as females, there is that chaos, but there's a yin and a yang. There's always been that. Yeah. There's a certain amount of chaos that is needed for things, to be born from it. But to me, as I look historically, right, the chaos of, like the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, even though that was chaos, good things rose up out of it, right? With the Revolutionary War, we won our independence. Right, with the Civil War, the slaves were freed. So a certain amount of chaos is good, but you just got to look and see what is the means. What is the ends to this means. And with the chaos that I'm seeing right now, I don't think the means is good.
No, it's not, because it's bringing out a negative outcome, and that negative outcome is weighing very heavily, and our children are suffering from it. School children are suffering. Like I was telling you about the person that I was speaking to on the phone just the other day about her child who can't adapt to the virtual learning at all. Yeah. And he does have an IEP. And when the curriculum has changed this year for BLM, because there's so much negativity about the organization, and it should be, because we know what they stand for. However,
but they've scrubbed their website.
Sure, they did. However, you can't scrub your mission.
That's right. That's going to stay the same.
That's one thing about history. When you open up a business, you have a mission statement, and that mission statement basically gives a rundown of what your organization is all about. So we know it's a Marxist group. However, violent Marxist group. And children have eyes. Our children have eyes. Talk a little bit
about that, sis, though, about Marxism, because I think a lot of people may not understand what
Okay.
Marxism is and where Marxism came from.
you really want me to? You're just like, you totally took me off my.
I'm sorry, but you said Marxism and
yeah, because I wanted to kind of stick with the kid, why the children were doing what they were doing. I want to stick on the educational part, because I know sometimes she would go off on the tangent and I have to just wheel her back in. So, but my back to what I was saying was the child with the BLM and the violence from the chaos. And they seeing it on television, that child is afraid to learn any type of curriculum about BLM because it's chaotic. It's violent. The children see the violence on television. So you can't say it's a friendly group when you see the chaos that is stemming from those who are basically saying that they are part of the BLM movement. So you can't separate the two. So that's the confusion within the education part. But
so are you saying BLM is a chaotic movement? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, with a chaotic foundation. Their mission was chaotic from the very beginning, is to continue to remove the black male from the family.
Right. Well,
it's a Marxist group. I think that Marxist group started way back. We're talking before the 60s.
I think that a lot of folks are aware, at least if those who are willing to be honest, is that Black Lives Matter, the movement was hijacked. I don't know, but the current Black Lives Matter that we see causing all of the chaos was started by Black female lesbians who are trained Marxist. So that was why, and I appreciate what Vic was saying, but I wanted to help people to understand where Marxism came from. It was started by a man back in the 1800s, Karl Marx, and he created a manifesto, and everything about that manifesto is against Western civilization, against capitalism, the core family, individual rights. You'll hear words like collective and these are buzzwords that I've learned come from Marxists.
But see, the thing about it, that was the 60s movement in which basically annihilated the black
family, right?
Black family unit. Black culture has always been conservative.
Right.
We've always been a conservative people.
It's funny you would say that because from a historical context,
yeah.
A lot of the principles, and I came to this realization myself lately. I used to argue against systemic racism. Yes, I did. But I had to come to the realization that there is systemic racism, but it comes from a certain ideology. And that ideology is Marxism and communism. Those who believe in that ideology believe in the state.
Yes.
That the state should control all production, that the government should be responsible for everybody. Like the government is going to be responsible for making everybody equal. Those who believe in that ideology believe more in equal outcomes. That's why when we talk about chaos and what's the end game, that is what the end game is. But here's the deal. They only want those of us who are lowly, everyday peons, useful idiots. They want us to have equal outcomes, but they want to have better outcomes than us. They want to control those of us.
Yeah.
So it's that whole thing, what's good for thee, but not for me.
Yeah. In other words, when you have Nancy Pelosi going to get a blowout job.
Getting her hair done with no mask on. But she's lambasting the president right now. For
exactly.
For not wearing a mask. Yeah. So I just wanted to bring back that point that the Marxists, the communists, the people who have that type of ideology are the ones who really want the chaos, but they want the chaos for their own power.
And their own purpose.
Right? Yeah. It has nothing to do with the everyday, regular person who just going about their life, trying to take care of their families, raise their children, love their grandchildren, pay their bills, pay their taxes. Yeah. That's a whole nother story. Taxes are illegal, but income taxes.
We're not even talk about that.
But y'all notice they tax income at a higher level than they do wealth, but we'll that's a whole nother story. Yeah. That's a whole nother program that we'll get into. So I guess too, sis, what I was thinking about, especially when we were talking about, you have mentioned some things about in our opening about Pavlov's dog. And,
it's the social conditioning.
Okay.
So this is basically the same thing that I was saying before. That who's behind shaking the bell? There's someone shaking the bell, and you answered it. It's the government shaking the bell. The government is shaking the wherever you live, whatever radio station, TV station you may watch. You may have media shaking the bell. It depends on where your news outlet is. Mm-hmm. Whoever is shaking the bell is conditioning you to respond.
Exactly.
Chaotic.
Exactly.
So the question is to every person that's watching this, who's shaking the bell, and what are you doing in response to all of this chaos? Are you going out, joining in the chaos, or are you finding other positive ways to respond to the chaos?
Well, that's a good question.
That's the bottom line. Are you acting chaotic too?
You're right.
Because listen, chaos is happening in everywhere. Everywhere I go, there's chaos. You hear people on the conservative side, because I'm going to flip it. You see people on the conservative side saying, you hear someone saying something to someone, and Trump. What does that mean? What? Do you see
I
that?
see it, yes.
I'm like, well, what did the president have to do with responding to the person?
Right.
Like, if a person says, you're racist, and the other person goes, Trump. I don't understand. You see what I'm saying? So it's just like responding from chaos to chaos. So you get, this is what you get. You get the explosion, and then you start going back, and then it starts to escalate because people are not responding to everyday people that they see every day in a loving, compassionate way, as you should do.
Would you say then that in respect to what the point that you just made is that people are responding to a certain stimuli in a certain way. Like you say, it's the conditioning.
It's the conditioning.
So automatically, without even thinking, and that's what we really want you guys to do here, is think on your own. But when they're hit with certain stimuli, with this type of chaos, with all of this craziness that's going on,
most definitely.
they have a conditioned response.
Yes. Yeah. And they want, it's just like a checklist. You know, like, I don't know if you guys noticed, when you went into supermarkets or in stores in your area during the height of the pandemic, and they were saying everyone wear a mask, and then we were kind of getting lackadaisical a little bit here in NC. And they said, mask, do you have a mask? And then they would just turn a number.
Right.
To say you know you have on a mask, you don't.
Right.
Basically, you were being conditioned. Going into the store.
Wow.
You were being conditioned, and they were stroking the numbers of all the people who weren't coming in with masks. And then to put a bow on it, to wrap that thing up and put a bow on it, what they did was, would you like a mask?
Yeah, I remember all of that.
So, you see, you already heard that you needed to wear a mask, but when they went to different phases, people begin to not wear masks. Me, myself, I never wore one. However, when you went into stores...
You didn't wear a mask?
No.
You trying to get grandma sick?
Who's grandma?
That's what they keep telling us in the media. If you don't want to wear a mask, that you trying to kill grandma. You trying to kill grandma.
But if I was around someone who had underlying conditions, I do respect that, and I will put on a mask.
Okay.
But here in my home, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to wear a mask in my car when I'm driving by myself. More chaos.
Yeah, that is funny. You see, when you see people out in the middle of the field walking, they got on a mask. Nobody's within 6 feet, right?
Yes.
And then you'll see people in their car by themselves.
You're being socially conditioned.
Vic, that's a good point.
So all of these things we need to kind of look at and say to ourselves, why the response? And is my response positive going forward to help my community, help my loved ones, help my neighbor? Am I being a good neighbor? Because, you know, putting on a mask and never speaking to your neighbor 12 months out of the year doesn't mean anything. It's just love thy neighbor as thyself, as I would say.
Hey, the problem, though, is a lot of us don't love ourselves.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we have this chaos in our lives.
Oh, yes. I mean, I love that saying, but a lot of times if we really look at it at a deeper level, you got to ask yourself the question, do I love myself?
Yeah.
Because if you don't love yourself, how can you love your neighbor? So that's sis, you made some great points as far as the social conditioning. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, out of all this chaos, is that we're getting conditioned.
We've been being conditioned since March. We are being conditioned by the government since March.
To be afraid. And that was the other thing. Remember we were talking about the psychology of chaos. And when you think about chaos, you know, you have fear. Yes. You're unsure.
Interpretation.
You feel unstable. You know. So that conditioning, and then that's the other thing too. If the government is telling us, and you got to think about it, all of the governors that are closing down the states and stuff is causing this sense of dependency on trusting the government to want your, you know, what's best for you. Yes. When actually I think nothing could be farther from the truth. Exactly. Because, you know, as we look at it, as you look at, you know, social conditions and people being locked in. Yes. You know, think about it too. Even with this virus, vitamin D is good for you, but if you which comes from the sun, but if you're shut in all the time, you don't get that. You don't get the so the shutdown really has more negative effects.
Exactly.
But I think it's purposeful too, though.
Yes, most definitely.
To help condition us.
To condition us to obey our government. Yes. You don't question the government. Don't resist the government. See, this is back to if we talk about communism. Yes. Not questioning the government. The government is there because we send you there. Right. Therefore, they're supposed to work for us.
Now, I've heard people say, now you tell me what you think about this too. It just came to mind for me. I've heard people say, that this is an experiment to see who's going to respond what way.
Yes.
That
yes.
they're looking to see, when I say they're, the elites, the powers that be,
yes.
The governors, the mayors, all of them, they're part of the elite. They're looking to see who's responding and in what way.
Exactly.
So should, we get to a point where there is, more chaos, more conflict stuff, they'll know who is going to follow suit and who's going to be the rebels.
Yes, most definitely. And and the thing about it, like I was saying, the tally sheets really are an indicator. Basically, it was a test being given, and data was taken. Data was being taken on all Americans.
Yes.
Okay, visiting stores, those who had masks on.
Yes.
In certain areas, and they're looking at all of those things. Is this the type of area that would comply if we told them to totally shut down for 2 years?
Wow.
And only come out for certain periods of time that's indicated or basically structured for you to come out to walk your dog? I said people felt like I was working on my house every day outside. I never stopped. I never stopped being a part of the community because I knew it was something being constructed by government.
Yeah. Yeah, when you think about it, all of the chaos that's going on right now, it can be considered a type of test to see how we're going to respond in the event of, for lack of a better word, all hell breaking loose.
So in other words, you were all sheeple.
I love that word, sheeple. Wait a minute, let me write that one down too.
What is she?
SHEEPLE. Sheeple. I love that word, Vic. I learned so much from her. That's why I write these words down. I will be using that in my vernacular going forward. But I think one of the things that really concerned me during this whole, lockdown, pandemic, with all of the things that we got going on, one of the things I was vehemently against was going into a nail salon or any place and they wanting to take my temperature.
Oh,
like, what are you going to deduce from taking my temperature? You're not a medical professional. What are you doing with that information? And you're right.
Who are you giving it to?
We actually have HIPAA protects our health information. It's called PHI, Protected Health Information. And why would I let you take my temperature? That's what I'm saying. You guys got to really be smart and understand our rights and really think. When I hear somebody say, "Oh, just wear the mask, ain't no big thing." Oh, just put on a safety. If you switching out your freedom for security, you don't have either. Is that it? Did Martin Luther King say that? I can't remember.
I don't know who said it, but I know that sometimes, Kim, I can't remember everything. She thinks I know
She does.
She thinks I know everything.
She knows a lot. Yeah, she's a wealth of information. Yes, she
thinks
does.
I know every quote, and I don't.
And then my mind ain't that long. Like my grandmama used to say, my mind ain't long as a gnat's Peter.
Listen,
so I rely on her a lot.
We both old heads swinging at this.
She's very smart. She just being modest. She knows a lot. She really does. I really appreciate it. See, I'm new to this. I just became conservative in the last maybe I'm about to tell about 20 years. But she's been one her whole life.
My whole life.
So
and I always knew it lined up with my beliefs as a Christian, coming from a Christian family, that life was precious. And they were so talking about Roe v. Wade when I was in high school. And when I came out of high school, Ronald Reagan was, I'm telling my age, Ronald Reagan was my first president I voted for. And I remember being teased by my girlfriend that I voted for, my best friend, Tracy, shout out to you, girl, that I voted for an old white man, an old white actor. The White House.
Lord, help a Lord.
Oh, God, I tell you. Yeah, but.
So, we only got about a minute left, sis. So, what do you want to leave with the folks today about what we talked about? What do you think is the most important lesson to get from this?
The first thing I want to say is that we must become historians.
Yes.
We must begin to start cracking books open.
Yes.
To reteach ourselves about American history. Because we tend to have a lot of pitfalls, misinformation that has been placed in our civics books. I'm glad that they're starting with history and revamping history in our school systems because it's so important. 2, I want everyone to vote on November 3rd because your voice, however you vote, is very important.
It's very important. And having said that, thanks for joining us on our first inaugural live stream.
Yeah.
Well said with Kim and Vig. And holla to KJ
Kevin.
Again. We
Thank
appreciate
you,
you pimping. Thanks, you guys. Check us out next week. We'll be doing this again. Thanks. Bye.